All right, now that we've finished loosely installing all the new components in the rear, we're ready to move on to the front, where a lot of the steps are going to be very similar. First up, we have to take caution and check for any tight hoses, wires, anything that might become restricted and pulled taut as we lower down the axle. So we're going to look for brake lines, ABS wires, any other wires that your vehicle and trim might have. In this case, we have enough slack on both our brake lines and the ABS wires right here where we do not have to remove the calipers like we did in the rear. So we're going to start by removing the front sway bar links, and we can keep going on all the steps from there. We once again have the vehicle fully supported on jack stands to hold up the axle, so as we prepare to take off the sway bar links and get ready to drop the axle, it won't just fall down completely. Hold it. There you go.
In this case, it's a 3/4 inch sizing, and we're just going to use an adjustable wrench on the top to hold the stud of the shock. And just like that. All right, so the front passenger upper bolt on the frame on this year Jeep, it's blocked by this resonator where the sensor is, so we're just going to use a straight wrench on the bolt, and then we're going to cut the bolt to remove it completely.
All right, now with all 4 control arms and the front track bar fully loosened but not removed, we can drop the axle down to release the tension on the springs so we can pull those out and get ready to reinstall the new parts. All right, so we're here working on the JKS brake line extensions. We're here in the front still. First step is going to be to remove the factory mounting bracket. We're going to want to save this hardware as we're going to reuse it for the new bracket. Just have to move this bracket out of the way and reinstall the new one. It has a matching tab just like factory to hook onto the location on the frame. You can install it with the factory bolt. Now this bracket is meant to be slightly bent just to pull it down and hook onto the new tab on our JKS bracket. Now we can go ahead and install the new bracket. You have to slightly bend it out of the way. You can hold the nut behind it just slightly lower. Right there. And now we can take our new hardware and start it onto the nut on the back. Now that we have removed both front lower control arms from the vehicle, we're back at the table looking at our brand new front lowers. With these, a similar process is going to apply as when we did the rears. We want to look at the measurements provided in the instructions as a good starting point. In this case, for the 1.5 kit, we're looking at 22 3/4. I'm going to grab my tape measure and measure center to center. Currently, we're a little long, so we can adjust a couple turns at a time and recheck. Now that we're at 22 3/4, we want to ensure that we get both arms exactly the same. Easiest way to do that is to turn them on their side so the bushings line up. You take your hardware slide it through the holes. This ensures that they're going to be exactly the same. Right now, this one's going to be a little short, so we can simply unscrew it until the bolt slides through again. In this case, it slides right in without having to force it. Now we know these are identical length.
With our lower arms set to the proper length, we're going to bring down the jam nut just so it bottoms out on the arm, and we're going to get ready to install the arm here. We want the bend facing in, providing clearance for when you reinstall the tires. You want the adjuster on the frame side. And you can install the bolt.
All right, so now that we got the frame side of the lower control arm in, we're looking at our axle side mount. Here you can see the gap that comes from factory. This is designed to fit the skinny factory arms. Since you're now getting a beefier, larger control arm, we just need to open it up just slightly. So right here, we're just gonna take a grinding wheel. We're just gonna open this up a little bit to give us more clearance to stop the arm from making contact. All right, we've gone ahead and installed both bolts at the frame and the axle side. Since we did the proper measurements already, they should just slide in. We should not have to adjust them, as we want left and rights to be identical. Now it's time we can go ahead and remove one upper. We're starting on the driver's side here. It doesn't matter which side you start on. You just want to remove one and then get the new one ready for installation. Now that we've removed one front upper control arm from the vehicle, we're ready to start looking at our new ones. Just like in the rear, our upper control arms are not meant to be set exactly the same left to right. So we've gone ahead and set one to our recommended length for this 1.5 kit at 18 and 11/16. We're not going to worry about measuring the second one exactly the same, as we're going to further adjust this when we're installing it on the vehicle. Once we get the 1 inch set at a length, we're going to simply either extend or screw back the other until it slides right in with the bolt.
All right, so we got the M12 hardware on the frame end, and this is the arm that we adjusted roughly to the given measurement for the lift height. We're now going to install the OEM bolt on the axle end.
Now with the one side installed with the new control arm, we can move over to the other side and remove the old arm. Note that once you fully loosen the upper control arm bolt, it will make contact with the exhaust. This might not apply to later JK models, but for this earlier JK with the 3.8 liter V6, it does make contact and will need to be cut off. This is why you get new bolts included with the kit. Now we can go ahead and remove the track bar completely. We're going to start at the axle side. Just note that when you go to pop the bolt out, your axle might shift. And now we can go ahead and remove the upper bolt at the frame side so we can completely take this old track bar out. Now we can go ahead and reinstall our new track bar with the adjustable side going on the axle, housing going on the frame. We can go ahead and slot in a bolt on just the frame side to secure it, because we're going to work on adjusting the axle side. All right, after we got our track bar in, we're ready to install our bump stops. We're doing it in this order simply because without the shocks in the way, we have enough room to get in there and easily drill out the center hole for our front bump stops. Now that you've fully drilled through in the center for your new bump stops, you'll be able to place it on top and insert the included hardware right through the center and use the included nut to secure it to the bottom. All right, now that we got our front bump stops all situated, we're ready to throw our springs in. Just like in the rear, we're going to be using the factory isolators again, right on top, just the way they came out. These are our 1.5 springs to go with our 1.5 kit. They are not size specific on this JK platform, so they're ready to be installed. All right, now we can go ahead and install those front springs with the factory isolator like mentioned. With the axle fully drooped, you may notice some angle to the spring. This is completely acceptable due to the fact that we have not made our alignment yet. With this exact JK, the front skid plate makes contact with the front drive shaft at full droop, in which case we've removed it to let it hang lower so we can droop our axle all the way down and get our spring put back in. Now that we're ready to install these front Bilstein shocks, we're going to look at the hardware that they include and make sure that we install it in the right order. Now that we have the shock ready to go, I'm going to put our first washer cup down, our first bushing with the nipple up, and it's ready to install into the upper shock mount. Now we can go with our second bushing, nipple down, and slide that over the threaded part. And now our second washer, cup up. Now, the included lock nut. Make your life easy, jack it up until you can slide the bolt right in.